Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Digital European FP&A Circle webinar brought to you by FP&A Trends. Today, we are going to look at leveraging artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning in FP&A for strategic decision making. My name is Hans Gobin. I'll be your facilitator, and I'm also the FP&A Trends ambassador. Just so you know, today we are joined by almost 500 people from 48 countries around the world. Great stats to start off with. So let me quickly share with you what are the meetings we've had previously in this category. So please have a look at it. Lots of meeting for you. What is on the agenda today? So today we're going to look at the key pillars for successful AI ML setup. We're going to look at some practical example and use cases in finance. We will then look at predictive forecasting in FP&A, a use case study at Philips in quite a bit of depth. We will then move on to look at the role of technology in taking your AI and machine learning to the next level. We will do some conclusion and recommendation, followed by interactive Q&A session at the end. So please, send your question. It is now a good time for me to introduce my panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen of the panelists, can you please join us on the webcam and come off mute while I introduce each one of you one by one. The first speaker today will be Zoltan Jelinscher, who is SVP Group FP&A and Data Office at Sportradar. He's based in Zurich, Switzerland, and which is where he joins us from. And today he will take us through the first session, going through key pillars for successful AI and machine learning setup. Zoltan, great to have you on the panel today.
Yeah, thanks, Hans. Great to be here.
Thank you very much, Zoltan. We move on to our second panelist, Giselda Economy, Senior Commercial Finance Manager at Vodafone UK. Vodafone UK based in London, of course, United Kingdom. And today she'll take us through a few use case examples of AI and ML in finance and relate to us the benefits of these use cases as well. Giselda, great to have you on the platform today.
Hello, everyone. Great to return to an FP&A webinar. Great to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We then move on to our third panelist, Scott Campbell, Head of Digital Center of Excellence, Finance and FP&A at Philips, based in Amsterdam, Netherlands. And he will take us through his Philips case study around predictive forecasting in FP&A. Scott, great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks, Hans. Thanks for letting me be back on the panel. Looking forward to it today.
Brilliant. Thank you. Last but not least, we've got Dr. Rolf Jettenmantel, who's Chief Product Officer at Jedox. He's based in Frankfurt, which is where he joins us from today. And today, of course, he's going to talk to us about the role of technology in taking AI and ML to the next level. Rolf, great to see you again on the panel.
Thanks, Hans. Thanks for having me, and hello to everyone.
Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got four great panelists with fantastic presentation waiting for you. But before we release the presentation, I would like to ask the panelists to switch their webcam off and go on mute because I've got some housekeeping to do as usual. So in terms of housekeeping, guys, you know what we do, all the projects and initiatives of FP&A Trends Group. We are now in 32 cities, 18 countries, and 4 continents. We do a lot of FP&A insight, as you well know, through our website, 450,000 plus readers, best practice FP&A webinars, which is what we're bringing to you, our LinkedIn group, and our digest. And finally, research, education, and consulting as well. So please do join us wherever you are if you're not already a member of these. So what does this webinar entail today? So we have a 90 minutes webinar. We have 4 polling questions throughout. We know what our panelists are doing, but we would like to know what you're doing as far as AI ML is concerned. What are the barriers you are facing, etc. So please participate in these polling questions. We have a Q&A session at the end. We say it's interactive because you can put your questions as from right now through the web chat. So if you've got any question right now, please send it to us. If not, do wait until the speakers have gone one by one and then direct your question that you would like them to answer. In terms of networking, you can connect directly with our speakers through LinkedIn, so please go ahead and do that when you get a chance. The presentation is available for you to download in the handouts today, so please do that. If you don't, you will still get a copy of the recording and presentation within a couple of days after the meeting via email. And finally, may I remind you that at the end of the webinar, when I close it off, there is a feedback survey pop-up session. It takes about 30 seconds, no more. Just tell us how we did and also tell us what you would like to hear from us in future. So what are those hot topics you would like to hear from us? So that's what we have in store for you today. So please come along. A quick thank you to our global technology sponsor, who is Jedox. And as we all know, they've got a fantastic adaptable and performance management platform. So thank you, Jedox, for partnering with us. I would like to share some stats and trends with you before I ask the speakers to start their presentation. So this is a great quote from Jeff Bezos, founder and CEO of Amazon, as we all know. So we are at the beginning of a golden age of AI. We've just started the journey. Recent advancements have already led to invention that previously lived in the realm of science fiction. And we've only scratched the surface of what's possible. I mean, we know the advancement we have had since AI has come along. So there is a lot more to happen. But let me share this with you. And those who've seen this FP&A trend survey will have seen this. Adoption of predictive analytics, AI, machine learning tools have dropped over the last 3 years. So if you look at that green bit on the top, right? So from 2021, 11% at its highest, and then 9%, and then 7%. What is causing that? That is something really worrying, and we are going to try and attempt to answer some of those questions as to why. Excel is one of those big ones, and Excel remain the dominant planning tool for 52% of our respondents. So here you're looking at the mid column in yellow. So people still carry on using Excel as their main planning tool. What problem does that give us? It does give us a lot of problems. So we're still fighting to do high value activities. The top bar there at 34%, which is green. The rest of the time, 66% of our time, we're doing low value or medium value activities. But us as an FP&A group, we want to be spending at least 50% of our time doing value add stuff. Again, where does that hit us? You know, we take too long to forecast, you know, and of those who do forecast, only about 40% are satisfied with the forecast. So some worrying trends there. But guess what? When you bring AI and ML, what happens? You know, insight generation driving action average before the use of AI and ML is around 33%. So the first column in the total there. But once you bring AI and ML into play, that increases to 49%, a plus 16%. So we really got to think hard and fast on this and really start to adopt AI and machine learning. So that's a very quick introduction in the subject, giving you some trends and analysis as to where we are. And then now what I will do is I will start to introduce my first presenter, Zoltan, who is SVP Group FP&A Data Office at Sportradar. And today he will take us through the key pillars for successful AI and ML setup. Zoltan, over to you.
Thank you, Hans, and hi everybody. Good afternoon. So what I wanted to talk to you all about today is, some of the prerequisites or the key pillars to be ready to really, tap into the opportunities that the AI and machine learning brings us. But to start with a little bit of a definition, really. I mean, when we talk about AI, we really mean, two different things. One is the machine learning, and the other part is generative AI, right? The machine learning is basically, the way we think about it, is the mathematical supercomputer, and the generative AI is the English supercomputer, that can interpret natural language and do a lot of cool things. So when we think about finance, and especially FP&A, and I try to list a few use cases on the bottom left here that are being used now across various parts of finance, and I think a lot of us are still struggling to find and understand these use cases. But there are quite a few, especially in the area of machine learning, which is all about data and training an algorithm, and then teach it to basically continue to learn by itself. So plenty of already used examples there. On the generative AI part of things, for finance, there are some implications. There are some off-the-shelf products that are being used in various parts of finance, but for FP&A, this is the harder nut to crack, mostly for the reasons of data security and ownership, and we'll hear about that later on in the presentation, and actually some great examples from the other panelists here, both in the area of machine learning as well as generative AI. So the use cases are starting to emerge. Adoption currently is low, but will increase. So what we need to make sure is that we're ready for it, right? We can start experimenting now, but in my opinion, there are two areas that we absolutely have to focus that are sort of prerequisites for successful implementation of AI-related technologies. So if we so on the next slide, I will actually talk about one of the two key elements, which is the data element. I mean, of course, there are all sorts of other success factors for an AI machine learning program. Of course, there's budgets, there is support from leadership, and so on and so forth. But the key areas, the two key areas that I want to touch on briefly today, is one is the data element, and the other one is the human element, or how to set up successful teams. So the data element is the first one where I think a lot of companies are underestimating how much work needs to go into a technology roadmap and overall the safeguarding and structuring of our data assets as a company. But to be honest, those are fundamental for then later applications of most sophisticated technologies like AI. And when you think of the data starts from all the source systems and all the different inputs that go into a company or a company's processes or a company's decision-making mechanisms. Then it goes through some preparation. It ends up in some sort of a data mart or a data lake, or ideally by today a cloud-based analytics environment. Then it goes into visualized products and ultimately customers and decision makers. And throughout these data lineage, so to say, I think it is critical that we really treat these data assets as digital assets and safeguard them and have data governance around, and make sure that we focus a lot on data quality and accuracy, because these are the foundations of then machine learning applications to be built on top. And data models cannot be underestimated. And we ourselves, I mean, at my company, Sportradar, we are a data company. We're a data technology company, and we deal with huge amounts of data sets, much of it real time when it comes to our customer facing products. And there's a lot of attention on those data sets and data models. But when it comes to our internal decision making, which we in FP&A tend to focus on most of the time, is how do we make that internal decision making more efficient, and how do we make sure that we safeguard those data sets and the data models underneath it, the same way, and we have this data lineage automated and clean and top quality, even for a technology company like us, it's not, not natural. And therefore, we've invested a lot of effort into this, and we do have a couple of AI machine learning applications starting already in the areas of forecasting, for example, and in the areas of insight generation as well, more in the generative AI side of things. But honestly, even us, a technology company, we're still today working a lot on the actual data preparation and making sure that the underlying data sets are solid enough so that we have enough training data and enough history, and the business logic is all clear. So to me, learning to pay attention to data models, have a solid technology roadmap within FP&A, and really treating these data sets and data assets as a critical value driver for the company. Moving on to before moving on to the people element, one example of this evolution of data, so to say, and how that results in then more complex and better technologies going forward. So our forecasting effort started around revenue forecasting 2-3 years ago, using just understanding the 50+ KPIs that we believed might have correlation to revenue, and understanding that correlation matrix, to then putting in place a fundamentally multiple regression based model. There's some other components to it, but it's predominantly based on multiple regression. But it's a static model, it's a predictive model, right? So future looking, but it's still a static model, it's not a learning model. But we needed to take that step as well to ultimately get to where we're now, which is implementing more of a learning algorithm, and let the machine continue to fine-tune itself, or the algorithm fine-tune itself, and really iteratively and dynamically pick the right variables from an opportunity list of many that drive revenue and have impact on revenue, and therefore resulting in continuously improved outcomes and better forecasting. So moving on to then the second point, the people element, right? So there is, of course, when it comes to people, there is a cultural element, and that starts from to what extent there is support from top management and leadership. It also starts from the fear of job security, or from a lot of individuals who, when you think about AI, they think that these technologies are going to replace them or replace their jobs. And I think, therefore, driving the right culture and driving the right positioning is a critical first step. And the way we should position AI is it's a new type of coworker, right? Just like we work in teams. A lot of problems we can only solve if we work in teams. We individually don't have all the skill set, and the same way with AR, right? With AI, they cannot work alone. They need a capable pilot, so to say, to drive that technology and use it as a co-pilot to drive better results. And you can see in the left and right hand side of that image some of the areas or some of the skills that we people are better at and good at, and what are the areas when the machine as our co-pilot, as our co-worker can really be helpful. Right, so so as you can see, and it's quite intuitive. The machine's better at calculating and standard processes and simple decisions, and it can recommend and inform and promote certain decisions. But then the human is required to guide that machine, to build that machine, to frame the problem, to design the strategy of the company, and to really support complex decisions, not just binary decisions. So in order for us as an FP&A organization to be successful as a co-worker together with technologies like AI, is really, in my opinion, the significant upskilling of a wide group within FP&A. So and of course you need expert roles as well. So when you look at the bottom of the page here, there are the expert roles, and that's the left-hand side. You can call it a center of excellence or an engineering center. Those are the people who know how to, how to develop, how to build a machine learning algorithm. But then, most of the people that we have in our FP&A organization are sort of in the middle category, middle box there, which we can call the AI evangelist or citizen data scientist. That's a term that Gartner uses, for example. But what we're talking about here is really a group of people who really understand the technology enough so that they can see its applications and implications on the business, right? So they are the business people and the FP&A business partners, and the folks in our teams who know about our business and products and our technologies and have the functional expertise. But they also need to be the type of people who constantly, as they do their work, understand what the linkage is towards technologies that are available today, for example, AI, machine learning, and can translate business problems, FP&A problems, into requirements that then can be picked up from that center of excellence or engineering center, and actually a product can be developed from it. And then I did touch a little bit about leadership and how important it is that we have an AR forward culture in the company and the right support for the investment into the technologies itself, but also in the upskilling of our workforce within FP&A. So those are the two key aspects of readiness that I wanted to start this presentation with, and I'm happy to hand back to Hans, and obviously open to questions later. Thank you.
Zoltan, what a great presentation. Thank you very much, especially that last page, which is a lot of what people always tend to forget. It all is about people and about bringing people on that journey. So absolutely great presentation. Thank you very much. But what I think we'll do next is we'll go to a polling question where we can learn a little bit more about the people, the FP&A people who are attending today, and learn about their AI journey. So if you can vote, please, we want to find out, to what extent would you say your organization uses AI in finance and FP&A? First option, no, AI is being used. Second option, we plan to use AI in the future. Third option, some AI is being used in finance. Fourth option, yes, AI is currently fully being used in finance and FP&A. So first option, no AI. Second option, there is plan. Third option, a little bit of AI. And the fourth option is, yes, we are fully embracing AI in finance and FP&A. If you can vote, please, that'll be excellent. I will give you another couple of seconds. I am now going to close the voting and share the results with our team. So 31% say no AI at all is being used, 45% plan to use AI, 22% have started to use some AI, and 2% have fully embraced AI. Zoltan, any insight on the outcome of this poll from yourself? Zoltan, you might be on mute.
Yes, apologies. Yeah, I'm not surprised at all, Hans. I think this is exactly what I would have expected from a balanced list of participants. And as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, I mean, even us as a data technology company, when it comes to utilizing this technology within finance and FP&A, we are probably still between that category 2 and 3 in most cases, just experimenting with a few use cases. But I think that's where most people are. So I think one of the key messages here on this panel is that you're not behind. If you focus on your readiness and start experimenting with some of the technologies, and you will see some great examples of that coming up from the other panelists, you're still in time. So let's embrace it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you look at it, it's 69% who are well, 24% have embraced it or are working with it, and then you get 45% hopefully within the next few months. So it is very promising. So let me just hide that now, and let me ask the other panelists to come and join us, please. Zoltan has got a question for everybody. So what is the biggest barrier of slow AI adoption in FP&A? And this question goes to the panelists, and I will go to Giselda first. Giselda, what will your opinion be on this?
It's a great question, and I think it doesn't have one answer. I would say organization complexity, data maturity, the internal skills or access to the right skills in order to drive change. I think ultimately for me, especially in a time where we have cost of the living crisis, very rough macroeconomics settings, I think also investment capacity is something that we have to bear in mind, because while these offer great opportunities, they don't come cheap.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Great points there. Scott, what would your opinion be on this?
Yeah, I think what I'll explain in my presentation, I think, is working with our finance colleagues, I think the biggest barrier we see is really not being able to always touch the tangible outcome of an algorithm versus a planning model. So that change management, that training, that onboarding, I think, is a big critical step in the process.
Thank you very much. And finally, Rolf?
Yeah, I think Zoltan mentioned it. I think first one is really data. It's the volume, it's the complexity, it's the comparison that you can compare it. And this is just not easy. And that's the complexity piece. So it's not a wonder that you need to have data scientists to do it, which limits it very much to get that adoption broader.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much all for your answers. Zoltan, any closing comments before we move to the next session?
Yeah, I think all of those are important, as that we mentioned. For me, honestly, it really is that, especially at the mid and higher management of finance, I think that the level of skill set is not enough. And when I mean skill set, I don't mean the very technical bit. It's just understanding what's possible, right? And then organizing the teams and the resources in a way that it can be achieved, right? Like devising a roadmap to get to the usage of these technologies. A lot of leaders today, I think, can't do it because they don't necessarily see what's possible and it's what's required to get there. So I think it's actually management and the lack of understanding of these technologies and what's required to get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on. So thank you for that. Just before we move to the next session, I'd like to remind our audience, now that we've heard Zoltan and a lot more insight on the barriers that's stopping us from all of the panelists, please start sending your question. And if you want anybody in specific to answer them, say who you want to answer them as well. So thank you very much for that. Panelists, may I ask you to switch your webcam off and whilst we move to the next session? And that is going to come from Giselda, who is Senior Commercial Finance Manager, Vodafone UK. And today she will take us through practical use cases in AI and ML. Over to you.
Thank you, and again, great pleasure to be here. Before I start with my presentation, I think I would just have a 1-minute introduction to Vodafone. So Vodafone is a multinational telecommunication group. It has a market cap of nearly 20 billion euros, so obviously a large and complex organization. And we have two main lines of business, consumer and enterprise. So the examples that I will bring here today, some of them will be on our consumer subscription type of business, and then enterprise, where we offer non-mobile solutions like clouds and services, will be more to address some of those business problems. It's a return for me. So obviously this is not the first time that I present the topic, and I really want to really wanted to bring again this slide, which showcases traditionally how we plan in Vodafone. As you can see, is a bottom-up approach. We have implemented rolling forecast. It starts from the very business inputs with detailed business models, mainly managed through Excel. It then goes to different iterations and head of departments. And I think and then obviously reviewed by senior management and all of that. I think one of the business problems that we wanted to solve is, can we plan quicker? Because obviously following this particular model, it can be very slow. It doesn't always add the value for the time that it gets. And also there, it highlights lots of data problem and transforming of the data, which is obviously increasing the cost of just being able to plan. And I guess in an environment that is ever moving is not always the most effective approach. So we decided as an organization that we wanted to embark in the opportunity that AI can bring, and therefore the desired outcome was always streamlined and improved financial forecasting, being able to manage risks and grasp opportunity with more agility, and then obviously from the data lake and data output, create actionable insights that could be implemented in a financial and commercial sense. So heading to the next set of slides, the first example that I am going to bring is on that accurate prediction and how we have applied within Vodafone financial forecasting. It's been quite a journey, just because depending on the complexity of the organization, it takes a lot of time to understand whether you do have, as an organization, the right data, whether you have access to the data, and whether the data is relevant and enough, so it matches the quality criteria in order for us to apply and get the most of the benefits of machine learning and AI. So we started small. We understood with the organization which were the data points that we needed as part of our models, and we wanted something more. And this is where external events then came in. On top of our trending and seasonalities and aggressive then modeling, we also leaned into the different models, inflation indexation, promotions of tariffs, competitor movements, as part of those different drivers and external drivers to help us understand more financial planning and analysis. By doing that, we processed millions of data in a very short amount of time, which was quite a difference, especially when benchmarked with our Excel capabilities. We were able to effectively use external data points. We were able to match with very high level of accuracy a FP&A outcome, which was price rise, which was a big win. And we were able, on a 6 months analysis, to maintain a 99.9% accuracy, also offering insights when navigating through different models or different plans. One of the main benefits was, to be fair, just changing the culture and understand that there is an opportunity to do things differently. There is an opportunity to think differently as an organization, and that created an environment in our senior stakeholders of welcoming such opportunities and creating an environment where we can learn and we can experiment and add value through that. The model is still live. It's being currently used as part of our volume-based forecasting, but it does offer great insight, especially when it comes to competitor movements and promotions and tariffs. Leading to the second example, it's, I think, again, in the subscription space, addressing our consumer business problem, which is churn prediction and prevention. So currently in Vodafone, we use an IBRO model in order to understand how our base moves. On a monthly basis and sometimes on a weekly basis, we understand what is our acquired base, how that is contributing to the base, given how profitable that overall acquisition is. And obviously we understand then within the base what is the value that we are retaining and how much of that we are eroding. We have models to also predict inflow and retention, and base comes as an outcome of that. But this particular model is addressing the overall ability for us to understand and predict the outflow. We do that on the basis of a P times Q analysis, which has estimation engine, but it has also underlying machine learning models in order to predict how the trend and seasonality can actually have as an outcome. This particular use case, it offers great commercial insight. And I think the success is that by having that handshake between the commercial stakeholders and the finance stakeholders, you can create an environment where different teams and functions come together. And instead of them having an opinion-driven conversation, they actually have a data-driven conversation. They have the ability to understand the data, to see how the data compares to the human judgment, and then once they trust the data, they were very able and trustworthy to use the models. The last example that I wanted to bring here today was a particular one, which is not necessarily in the financial planning, but it does offer an opportunity, and it highlights, I guess, the overall ability to think out of the box on how you can deploy AI use cases for the sake of creating structured data out of the unstructured data, which is the foundation for any successful, I would say, FP&A modeling and planning. So the business problem within Vodafone is that in our complex enterprise segment, most of the valuable information about our customer resides in our enterprise contract. And in order for us to be able to understand how an annual order value or a total value of the contract would be translated in an in-year revenue, and also understanding the nature of the revenue, all of that process was very manual. So currently what we are exploring is how can we use AI in order to generate through the OCR technology structured data out of contract data, which is very scattered. So we have a couple of projects within Vodafone where we use the OCR technology, and we also layer it on top of it with AI technology, which learns from reading the contract and being more accurate in bundling and structuring the data. The main use cases, because currently this is in POC stage, the main use cases that we're looking forward to is the ability to really understand the mail milestone of the contract, being able to manage commercial risk, and therefore also prevent potential financial erosion out of that contract. This is also key for us to have, again, a data-driven conversation about that bottom-up approach, where in most of the cases, when referring to an enterprise business which offers non-subscription level solutions, you need to really have an understanding of a project and contract accounting, and this is a great start to be able to create that data points. So happy, this was all for me today, but happy then to share with you the conclusions at the end of the session.
Giselda, thank you very much. Fantastic presentation. Great example of how it is actually being used in live, but also what are the key benefits that you, the company, and everybody else has reaped in terms of putting these into place. So we've heard from you. Let's look at what our audiences are doing through our next polling question, which is where we're asking you, if you haven't started that AI ML journey, now that you've seen all the benefits, and of course you've got some sort of a plan, when are you planning to start it? First of all, no plans to start at this point in time, maybe in 6 months' time, maybe within 6 to 12 months, or the last one is more than 4 years, more than a year, sorry. So please, can you vote? And again, when do you expect to start your AI ML based journey in finance and FP&A? No plans at this time, within 6 months, within 6 to 12 months, more than a year. If you can vote, please, I'll give it a couple more seconds and then I will close the polling question. So a couple more seconds and closing now. So thank you very much, and I'm going to share it with everyone. So what does it say? 19% said no plan at this time. 23% says within 6 months, very encouraging. 35% within a year, 23% more than a year. Giselda, any feedback on this outcome?
Well, I think it's a positive outcome. I'm, to be fair, thrilled to basically see that 80% of our experts in financial and planning and our mid management can confirm that they are in the journey of transformation. I think for the rest of the organizations which do not have plans at this time to adopt such technology, I think that should be a reflection point to understand what the North Star for that organization should be and how they want to balance the tactical versus strategic capabilities in the future. But
Absolutely.
I think really, really positive.
Yeah, no, absolutely well said. And I think we are going to discover through your presentation and everybody else, you know, why we should and how we should and what are those big questions and the blockers. So may I invite the other panelists now to come and join us and answer or discuss this point that Giselda has brought forward nicely. So how should the traditional finance business partner role and skills evolve to support AI adoption? So if we can go around the house, may I come to you, Zoltan, first?
Yeah, I did touch on this, you know, in my presentation. I think it's, you know, I don't know what we call the traditional finance business partner role in FP&A, but I think a large percentage of the FP&A organization, whether you are a business partner or a bit more of a functional technical role, I would say 30–40% of our population within FP&A needs to get some sort of a basic medium level training on these technologies. Basically, that's the most critical part. I think the deep technical expertise, like when you talk about the data scientists and the software engineers, a lot of that exists, if not within your own company, then in the outside world. You can hire that skill set in. I think the bigger challenge is how do we organically uplift these sort of low to medium level skills within the wider FP&A population.
Thank you very much, Zoltan. Scott?
Yeah, I think very much along the same lines. Giselda, thanks for that presentation. I think 3 really good use cases, and they all talk about data-driven decision making, which for me is the skill set, right? How do all of us in finance get better at storytelling around data and data visualizations? And yeah, it's a bit of the algorithm that I talked about earlier, right? So I think it also is around the skill set, the training opportunities to just, you have to be able to tell different stories because of this data-driven approach.
Thank you very much, Scott. Rolf?
Yeah, I think that the finance business partner for the time being, when it starts, is really the transmission of giving from that technical expert, adopting some of that data scientist skills to talk with the actual partners that they are giving advice. And so helping to make all that comes out of AI accessible and useful for the business users in the different departments.
Brilliant answers. Giselda, come back to you. Anything you want to add?
Yes, please. So I think that the organizations, especially our HR functions, should really make sure that they touch base with the finance leaders to basically understand how they should recruit for the different skills. I think data is an absolute must. Understanding of the storytelling, completely agree with you there, Scott. But I think that there is fundamentally something different that has to change in the way that we actually view the capability. So we have to have a bit of an innovation, and finance is very traditional in that cultural sense. So we have to get new skills in order to challenge the status quo.
Absolutely. I think as we know, we have to keep evolving. Otherwise, you know, we are redundant. But anyway, let me just quickly remind our audience, please keep sending your questions. We've got an exciting Q&A session coming. Now you've seen 2 presenters, so please send us your question. Let us now nicely move on to our next session, where we leave to Scott. So if I can ask everybody else to turn their webcam apart from Scott. So Scott is going to talk to us about predictive forecasting, FP&A, in FP&A, and of course, what he's been doing at Philips. Over to you, Scott.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the intro. So what I wanted to do is talk more specifically about one use case, which is really how do we use predictive planning in our planning process. If you look at our Philips product lines, for those that aren't familiar with Philips, we sell a variety of products all the way from Sonicare toothbrushes all the way to the right to very complex scanning machines that you would see in a hospital setting, an MRI machine, a CT scanner. So each of these product lines then for planning has its own complexities and stuff, and that's really what I wanted to focus on today. On the next slide, when we started our journey, we were very much using our planning system as a consolidation engine, and we really wanted to start talking about a digital forecast, a digital P&L, where we're using the tools to bring together the plans and not simply loading it to the system. So when we look at our planning process, we get our sales forecast from our supply chain organization, so that's an input for us. We also have at Philips a very detailed order book. So the large hospital equipment, those are highly configurable. We have to take anywhere between 3 to 9 months to build those systems and install those. So we have very detailed configuration data that we want to use in the planning process. We have a big part of our P&L, which is the unknown part, which is our service organization. So we install a machine at a hospital, and then we want to do that recurring maintenance that's highly unpredictable, which is a good use case then for the machine learning. That's what I'll focus on today. We also have inputs from our workforce planning, so we get our cost center or FTE information from our HR colleagues from Workday. We then run that through a cost center planning tool. We have other applications for advertising and promotion, R&D. So we try to bring those all together into our planning tooling. But at the end of the day, we have to rely on the human factor, which is our business partners, our business leaders in the markets, in the regions that really know the business best, that they end up with the final the final plan. We're trying to organize that in the most efficient way. Let me go into the next slide, which talks a little bit more of a P&L view for our finance colleagues here. So this is how we see this idea of a digital P&L coming together. Down the left-hand side, you see the way that we view the profit and loss statement, and then across the top you see our 4 what we call business models, and we have a variety of different digital drivers and then also machine learning. So again, for the places that we have the details, we try to use those, bring those in systematically. Those are our cost center planning tools. That's our margin analytics tool, which looks at the equipment business. For our products business, which is our toothbrushes, our shavers, we have a very consistent way to apply a P times Q cost adder to those. But where we really focused in on then machine learning and predicting is in the cost of sales for the service organization. We get a recurring revenue stream from committed contracts, but then the activity of servicing those machines can be quite sporadic. So that's where we thought the best opportunity was. As a percentage of our sort of cost base, it's about 18%. So a big chunk of our planning we're able to then to do with the predictive planning. In the future, we're looking at the adders to see if we can't create an intelligent algorithm that will replace the adders more for efficiency. And then finally, the other area we're looking at is in the purple area, which is where when we look to extend our planning horizon, our order book runs out, our funnel runs out, and then everything we think would be better predicted using the machine learning, take that work out of the organization to put in more accurate, longer term information. Now, on the next slide, we talk about, again, we're trying to create this digital grid. So we have we use a data lake to then combine from all these other systems through API and through loading into a common platform where we combine that and then pre-fill that into our planning system. Now, there's probably quite a few data scientist type folks maybe that have joined the call. So I did want to have a slide next on the architecture. So we've decided to do all of this predictive, all of this data combination outside of our core planning system. And so here you see our cloud platform, where we take the information from, on the left-hand side, all of our inputs, our sales, our orders, all the other information. And the data scientists in my team have created then a pipeline, where on the bottom half we have the training pipeline, where we go back and we look at 2 to 3 to 4 years of information. We process the models, and then when we go to run our production model, once we have the inputs coming in from supply chain, we can actually run through this pipeline in a matter of hours, and get that full prediction, that full pre-fill of the other that other information, and pre-fill it back into our VPC system in really a number of hours. From a pure data science prediction, the team has set up a very complex infrastructure where we use several different models within the algorithm. The model self selects the most accurate models that it sees, and then that's what ends up then in the prediction. So again, we're trying to pick out the very specific places that we see we can use machine learning to then improve the process. Now, on the next slide, what we're trying to do as a next step at Philips is really what I've talked about is the left-hand side. So we traditionally do also a rolling forecast, and we only look through the end of the current year. That's our current process. So we want to use the order book. We want to use our FTE plans. We want to use this machine learning. We have plans to then extend the planning horizon from the current year out to a rolling 18 months. And again, that's where we'd look to implement the full AML predictive capability for the whole Philips P&L. And this is where we would look at different drivers like market share, different economic factors, our strategic workforce planning. Where do we see our business strategy going to? Those would become then the inputs to create then that long-term predictive P&L, which is then 100% aggregation. And we would do that with a smaller central team to take that strain out of the organization to have to produce that plan. But again, at the end of the day, it's the human factor where the people responsible, so the executives in the businesses and the regions, ultimately hold the pen on what they put forward in their submissions. I did want to leave you with a few things to think about. So on the next slide, I've created here a list. So it's super important to have a top-down executive sponsor, someone that really wants to push the idea into the organization. It's equally that you need an early adopter, right? So someone that understands the technology, someone that wants to put the results into their part of the planning. For us, that was a huge enabler. For those of you that haven't started, you should start small, find a use case that makes sense. But it's really important to understand the big picture. How do you want to scale it? Do you have the infrastructure? Do you have the team behind it? But it's always good to start small to prove that out. Along this idea of a citizen data science, really find your savvy data science folks that understand data, that have an affinity towards the math that's required. Really use those as team members to help you bring it into the rest of the organization. Number 4, I'm a strong believer that if you really want to be successful in this, you really have to hire your data science capability. Don't expect that a finance person can then switch easily to data science. Don't expect even an experienced IT person to be able to do data science work. I do think it is one where you need to hire in that capability to make sure that your algorithms are successessful. Number 5, I've mentioned it before, the change management, the training, the education. That's the biggest barrier to get the adoption, especially in the finance domain, where we need to have those concrete numbers to steer the business. And then for us, we decided not to put in a new planning system. We decided to use other techniques and bring it back into our planning system. So if you have existing systems, there's potential to retrofit it. If you're in the market for new tooling, I think you'll hear a great example in the next session. So thanks for listening. Back to you, Hans.
Scott, thank you very much. Great presentation. Thank you for going into that level of detail about what you've been doing in Philips, and of course leaving us with lots of tips at the end of it. So fantastic there. Let us very quickly move and find out, for those who have implemented AI-powered predictive planning, did that lead to better adaptability during uncertain times? And we've seen so many uncertain events lately. Did that really help you? So please do vote. Yes, it helped us quickly adjust to any market changes, any vulnerability, any uncertain time. No, it didn't make any noticeable difference. We haven't experienced significant uncertainties yet. We haven't implemented AI. We understand quite a lot of you haven't. So please do vote. And as we expect, most of the vote is going to go to number 4 here. But please, those who are, please let us know. Yes, it did help us quickly to adjust to market changes. No, it didn't make any noticeable difference. We haven't experienced significant uncertainties. I will give it a couple of more seconds, and I'm going to close the vote and ask Scott for a quick insight. Of course, Scott, we knew what the answer was going to be because most of us haven't really. But what do you think of the first 3 numbers there?
Yeah, so it's based on the previous 2 where we don't have everybody looking at AI. It's not surprising that that's not the purpose, right? I think it's great to see the 8% that has been able to do the market changes, or the changes to the modeling due to market. I think in our case we were right in the middle of the development, and it would have been a trend break, which means that our algorithms probably would have failed. So maybe that's also a learning that you still need to have the people, the sanity checking of the models. I think the models have to mature, and you have to have many diverse drivers in to really be able to handle the uncertain times. I think that's my summary. So yeah, it's one of the difficult things about this being maybe a newer technology.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Very, very positive there. Out of 13%, 8% have seen a real difference that has made to their during uncertain times. So we now go on to the question that Scott wants to open up to the panel for discussion. So panelists, if you want to join me, please, that'll be fantastic. And the question being, one of the biggest obstacle during Scott's project was change management adoption. Any further advice for our listeners today on how the panelists broke through these? So Zoltan, can I come to you, please, to start with?
Yeah. I think it's just like with any new technology. I mean, it has to do with with fear and job security, like I also alluded to in my presentation. So I think it's we need to take that part of the project seriously as well, and the HR, the change management, the people aspect, and hopefully bring people with. Right? I think I can't really. I mean, I'm sure the others will have good advice as well, but I think this is a hard one to pinpoint with specific actions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much there, Zoltan. Giselda, how did you deal with this?
So I think from our experience, 2 are the main things. First of all, executive sponsorship is very important. Tom, from the top, you're going to always have resistance to change. But when you look at your leaders and then they see that they are champions, I think that brings a very good culture, and then accepting the change just a bit more easily. The second one.
Oh, we lost you for a moment there, Giselda.
Which I think also Scott has touched the point. When we think about the use cases and Yeah, how can we enable them? I think being able to clearly articulate the business problems that we are trying to solve, it's equally very important, because that is then how the organization sees value, sees the impact, and then they become the ambassadors for the change.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Rolf?
Yeah, I do not have too much to add to the 6 points that you had on this last slide. That was pretty much it. I think it's all about building trust and lower the entry barrier of trying it by yourself instead of talking about it or thinking what it does. And you see this a little bit with ChatGPT. It was the first time when AI was accessible for everyone, and that was November 22, and it has completely changed the perception, I think, and that's what we have to do in a different way of getting people's hands on the technology within the organizations, and then they see it's helping and not hurting.
Great answers there. Scott, circling back to yourself, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's what we tried to do was show that it was accurate, repeatable, faster, right? Gazelda had a lot of great examples of bigger, faster, stronger, right? So I think that's important. And then the training and the upscaling of the folks to understand. I think those were the things we also focused on as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for your answers to this. Let us now swiftly move on to our last set of presentation. And to deliver that, we've got Rolf. And Rolf will, of course, take us through the role of technology in taking AI and ML to the next level. Over to you.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you. Yeah, let's start. So the question was how to tackle this theme of what is the impact, especially in the role of FP&A of AI. And I was thinking of using the analogy of autonomous driving because one of us has a picture about that in mind, that it is about starting from driving a car and handling everything by yourself with no automation, so no assistance systems, to partially assisted, which everyone knows there is emergency braking or park distance control or something like this available, towards more sophisticated support like cruise control or the lane centering and the distance control to the car in front of you, to highly automated things where the vehicle really handles most of the functions by itself, but the driver is still controlling it, to the goal that every car manufacturer is aiming for, to that full automated piece. And I think you can quite easily transfer this to the finance world, where we have the situation of running a finance planning FP&A process purely on Excel, manual data extracts, number crunching, refining data, importing data into an Excel sheet, creating reports, sending these reports around, collecting data via Excel. And the first step there is as well the process automation, where AI machine learning can already help to automate ETL processes, to make the data preparation easier, to make the report distribution or workflow support smarter. A next level would be the predictive capabilities of leveraging the data that's now in a structured way to look forward, to have a driver-based prediction, predictive forecasting, where you can identify patterns. We have seen this in the example with the churn prediction, things like this. And the next step would be really to expand the scope. So it's not just about finance data. If you really want to manage and be a business partner within the organization, you need to combine the finance data with the operational drivers within an organization, which means you have a company-wide best presentation of your value creation and value chain, and then have that handled, that you can look at what if analysis, what if you change something, and ending up finally with how making this system accessible for other users, which is the NLP&I interface with natural language working with the system. And this is something where we see if we want to implement a system like this to see what the future would be, that we see this in 3 pillars. And on the next slide, we have the first pillar of that, which we call the hyper automation pillar. We've heard in the presentation in the very beginning from Hans that also that about 40% of organizations are still seeing excessive manual effort as one of the main challenges in their organization. And automation in AI ML can really help to automate these processes to the highest degree possible by organizations improving their efficiencies, they reduce errors, and at the very end they have more time to make strategic decisions by themselves. And how this looks like is something that we can look at in a video on the next slide to really get an idea how an automation could look like. So this is an example where you have the visualization in a dashboard that represents your data, where you immediately can see with the 3 blue dots there, there's data until March in there. You can navigate through the data. Access to the information is immediately accessible at the moment you're looking at it, but it's connected to the data source system. So you have the combination to the source systems to load data, cleans data manually, and the data that was only until March in the system is suddenly until June, and this is the system, and you can work with this. And this is only one part. It's also the interaction. When you create a plan, the system can, with ML capabilities, create a prediction with a corridor of most likely values, and then you can work and create the data by putting manually the data into the system and create a plan. So the combination of forecasting and planning within the system. And this is just an example how ML can help to make it more, to have that hyper automation of the system. So this is the first pillar. The second pillar I would like to talk about is more about not the processes, but the scope. So it's not about, like I said in the beginning, about the finance data. It's about really a digital twin of the business model, because the lack of consistent data, the lack of integration of different business processes is a second big hurdle that many organizations are facing, and we have partially seen in the presentations before that it's about making that harmonized data foundation available. And what you have to aim for is having a virtual replica of your entire business model so that you can see which impact has an operational driver outside of the Office of Finance on your finance data. And with that, you can streamline operations and enhancing decision making by having the system really as a digital twin, where managers can use this to simulate scenarios and test alternatives. And also this is something that we can look at how this could work in the next slide in a little video, how the digital twin can work. Because what we see here is a system that does not only contain data from finance, it also contains data, for example, from raw materials, stock indices, currencies, and shows the correlation with operational and finance drivers to see what is the pattern behind this. And this is done by AI algorithms to analyze this. And these patterns can then be combined with different scenarios to cover areas like sales, purchasing, HR, S&OP, or the environmental impact of making decisions, how these drivers are impacting your decisions and your results in an organization. So from the data pattern that you can learn of, you can enhance the decision making within your organization on the finance side. And that reflects at the very end in the P&L that you see at the bottom, where you can see when I chose this or that alternative based on historical data that the machine learning or has analyzed, we see the impact. And it's actually very close to the idea of the digital P&L you've seen in the presentation from Scott before, where we have that representation of having sales, production, purchasing data, and so on within the system. So this is the second pillar. The third pillar I would like to go to is about the communication and collaboration. That means it's about the accessibility of these technologies. We just talked about business partnering to the business users. Also here, the machine itself can learn by using NLP and generative AI really as a user interface to the system and making the system really the digital assistant by itself, enhancing decision making across the finance departments so that the decision maker can describe what they want to achieve to the system, and the system can help to give the answer. Another video that shows what capabilities of AI are possible for different user roles. So what we have in our system now is, for example, that a business modeler, so that data scientist who's the expert, can ask questions how to achieve certain capabilities and build the model by leveraging the knowledge about creating the predictive models in the system and how to use this. Another area is the end user within the system, which we see here, who can just ask a clear text question, show me the mountain bike revenues in Switzerland, instead of creating a report or asking the business partner to create this report, and the system interprets this query and creates an initial report that you can use to navigate into further details. This is something that makes it much easier. And also the generative AI can be used also to interpret the data. So in this case, for example, a ChatGPT-like function analyzes the data that's residing in the database and comes up with an initial interpretation. And of course, this is just a first draft, but it can be refined by someone going in and editing the data to have the explanations for others using. So this is really just to give an overview of the spectrum that you can cover with this. And with all of that, I like to summarize on the next slide really what this all is then about. I think to really be successful with AI in the FP&A space, it's the combination of the three, and they are really looking at the subject from three different perspectives. The first thing is on the process side, it's about that hyper automation to take out the time wasting activities by automating them with AI, which was not possible before. The second thing is about the scope, widening the scope, because context data that AI is learning from is not just residing in finance, it's across the organization. So we have to combine the two. And the third one is about that entry barrier that I talked about before, make the system accessible to the end users by themselves, so that they can work and learn, build trust, and work with AI. And that's what I wanted to present in this presentation. Thank you.
Rolf, fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. Those demo were just out of this world. Of course, we can see how software can help us take AI and ML to the next level. We talk about informed decision making, and this is how we do this. So thank you very much. Let us very quickly now look at the next polling question and learn a little bit more about our audience today. Of course, we've seen throughout the full discussion, but we want to know, what is the key factor to further advance the digital journey towards AI in your organization specifically? Is it technology that's stopping you? Is it leadership support? Is it skills and competencies? Is it data and processes? If you can vote, please. So what is the key factor to further advance the digital journey towards AI? Do you need technology? Do you need leadership support? Do you need skills and competencies in finance? Do you need data and processes? I will give it another 10 seconds for you to vote. If you can, please do. So is it technology? Is it leadership support? Is it skills and competencies? Or is it data and processes? I'm now just about to close it, and here we go. So let me share it, and then I'll talk about it. So 14% says technology, 29% support, leadership support, 25% skills and competencies, and 32% data and processes. Rolf, any insight you want to share on this?
No, I can completely understand it, because it's really about that combination of leadership and data process that I see leading, because with data and processes, you see where it's really getting complex. Leadership, we've heard in the presentation before, it's hugely important. So the relatively even split about
absolutely well said. And I've already got a few questions talking about technology. It's not all about technology, as you said. There are some blockers in there, which is fantastic to hear apart from technology. So let us now bring our panelists. If you can join us, please, and let us talk through the question that Rolf has got for everybody else. So panelists, if you can join us on the camera and come off mute, please. What is the biggest barrier to your business users working with digital business partners in the business? Zoltan, can I ask you to please go first?
Yeah, I think there is a credibility question in this space, probably more than anything else still, right? Like, I think it's just too new of a space, and people are hesitant even, to using internal expertise for the people that have it to really advance their AI ML agenda. And then when it comes to a business partner or an external third party, I think it's probably that knowledge disparity that gets people uncomfortable, right? Like there is very little in-house knowledge. The external partner claims they have the solution to it all, and then how comfortable you feel in that sort of an engagement. So I think with us internally continuing to raise the bar and enhancing our internal skill sets, I think those collaborations externally will also increase. And just like with anything else, companies will find the right balance in the middle between growing talent and skill set and capabilities in-house versus engaging externally for when the time is right to do so. So
fantastic
time
answer.
will solve it, I think.
Fantastic answer there, Zoltan. Sorry to speak over you. Gisela?
My thoughts on this is that the digital business partners don't always get it. And I think as part of let's explore together, not everyone is open to understanding really what are the business problems. And this is where then trying to understand how to solve it or create terms of references to find that solution is very difficult then to engage and adopt in such a case. So I think that understanding the organization, understanding the business problem, and have a culture and objective in itself to solve technology is the right way forward. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Scott, over to you.
Yeah, I think Rolf gave a really poignant discussion about this digital twin, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that our business users are asking for. The way that we built ours, we don't have that scenario planning capability. We submit what we forecast. So I think the digital twin and the scenario planning is actually one of the biggest asks in our organization. And then the barriers would be the same things about training and stuff. But I think it's, if you get it right and you do the scenario planning, people can get comfortable before they submit it. I think that's that's actually a big win, as long as people understand what's in the data and how to use it. That'd be my answer.
Brilliant, thank you. And can we circle back to you, Rolf? Any final comments before we move to the next?
No, these are very great points. I think the credibility, and people don't get it, so there's implicit knowledge somewhere and you need to get it across, and this is something that the external or the system doesn't know. Makes completely sense, and that training exercise are all good points and very helpful to get a better understanding of that.
Thank you very much all. Before we move to this key takeaways or conclusion, I'd just like to remind our attendees, please keep sending your questions. We've got lots of them. I don't think we can go through all of them today, but whatever questions we have, we will answer some of them. The rest will be answered to you directly on your email. So don't threat, just keep sending right throughout to the end. So now we want to do some conclusions, and we're just going to go around the house and ask each member for a quick conclusion or two. So Zoltan, can I come to you? What would you like to leave the audience with in terms of conclusion?
Yeah, I think maybe the most important message for me personally, to myself as well as everybody else on this call, I think we're all in the same boat, is just I think we're now at a stage where everybody should feel comfortable experimenting. Right. I think that's maybe a year or two ago. It was still there's too much resistance, negative feelings attached to it, not enough clear use cases. But I think by now we're definitely, in a situation where all of us should, go ahead and start utilizing this technology. You can use it for the bigger things like a whole digital twin-based business model and budgeting process, like we heard from Rolf today, or you can use it to some own personal productivity within the FP&A team, using some of the little gadgets and tools that are available. In any case, I think it's that my message would be just to not be afraid anymore or hesitant, and jump into it and start experimenting.
Fantastic, thank you. Giselda?
I think for me the takeaway, also building on everything that we have presented today, is that For me, adopting AI is a great opportunity for finance to be a key partner in that decision making. We should not forget that we produce report and plans in order to add value to the an organization and do things differently and add more value to the company. So if we keep that in mind, I think how we do it, whether we use the most fanciest technology or the latest model, is then a way to get there, but not necessarily going to make the massive difference.
Thank you very much. Scott.
Yeah, I wrote down a few things. I think based on the polling question about, I think 76% haven't yet started. That's my biggest tip, is start now. I really like Zoltan's slide on the resourcing. So really understand the right people in the right part of the process. I thought that was a great slide as a resource. And then my own tip is, yeah, just don't underestimate the upscaling of the employees, the change management, the training, the knowledge that it requires to teach, especially in the finance domain, this type of output. It is a different challenge, so don't underestimate that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Scott. And finally, Rolf.
Yeah, I think what was mentioned with experiment, just get started and think big, start small, execute quickly, was also in one of the presentations. I think this is right. And when I bring this back, when we created this picture of the analogy to the autonomous driving and looking what happens in the car industry, it's not that you have to aim for the perfect solution. So different systems are automating different aspects step by step and are integrated in this full system. And that's exactly the same that happens in FP&A. I think that we don't have the big solution. You can have a little thing that automates something, like interpreting the contracts that we had as an example, or identifying churn. And this already helps. And if you have these use cases, you learn from that. And this can be in different areas. And that's, I think, what we need to learn. You don't have to look for the overall solution that fixes everything.
Absolutely, absolutely spot on. So thank you very much for the conclusion. So again, ladies and gentlemen, keep sending your questions. We are now going to start to answer some of them. Of course, we're not going to get a chance to answer all of your questions, but all of it will be answered via emails anyway. So thank you, panelists. Great presentation, great insight on all of those discussion points. Now we've got some questions coming from our audience and our esteemed FP&A members. First one to Zoltan. Zoltan, one thing you brought up was, are we as finance, and this is a question that a lot of people ask, are we as a finance team going to be made redundant or will be redundant as we implement AI? And the question here is, what should we be doing to make sure that we remain relevant?
Yeah, so I think when you ask the question about finance overall, yes, I personally do believe that some finance roles will eventually disappear or will be different, right? I mean, that I foresee more on the transactional side of things, whether that's record to report, order to cash, or buy to pay. There are lots of opportunities there for more effective transaction processing. So I think overall for finance, some of that I think will be true, and there'll be different roles in finance emerging as a result. When we think about FP&A, I think certainly, as I mentioned before, I don't think this is about replacing, you know, the human in the process. It requires a different kind of human to interact with different skill sets, and I truly believe, you know, formal education is needed, right? Like this isn't stuff that people will just pick up on their own, you know, in their spare time, right? Like I think there is educational programs, classes need to be provided to FP&A professionals so that they understand how they can, you know, as you mentioned at the very beginning, Hans, how can we free up more time to truly value-added analysis and insight generation, and let the machine do, you know, a lot of the work in terms of identifying anomalies or doing some of the basic roadblocks of planning or whatever it may be, right? But I think for us to really take that technology leap, we need to first upskill our own workforce. So I think that's what we need to do as an organization, and all of us on the call individually, is you know, seek out those opportunities and get more formal training in this area.
Absolutely, and I think there's a saying somewhere that if we don't train constantly, our skill set becomes almost redundant every 3 years or something like that. So whichever way it is, without even AI, you would. So at the end of the day, we've got to keep upskilling ourselves, and no major part of finance will become redundant. As you mentioned, Zoltan, the roles will change. So fantastic answer there. Thank you very much. Giselda, you are next, and a great question here. And you shared 3 fantastic examples. I know your organization is slightly bigger, but this is a question: is it feasible to integrate AI ML capabilities with Microsoft Excel, which is another big thing, to mitigate the necessity for significant investment in additional tools? What is your thought on this?
So my experience building into that tech stack type of knowledge is that you make the most of machine learning and AI capabilities using cloud solutions. Cloud solutions need, in general, inherently are very expensive because of their ability to consume data by benefiting from all of them. And the danger of incorporating that Excel as part of that end-to-end state is then how you alter the data. I think, the organization needs to come together, and it very much depends on the use cases, to be frank. We currently don't use Excel as part of the use cases that I've just shown. It can serve very much as an input to a further Excel manipulation of the data in order to then present it differently. But it's a use case by use case conversation, I would say.
Absolutely, a great point there. But then we shared, was it 45% now? I can't remember, that are still doing non-value add stuff. Aren't we putting another step in the ladder to doing more non-value add stuff by input, output, Excel, left, right, and center? This is a question, a general question anyway. So we're complicating things rather than trying to improve things. So that would be my thought on this. So let's go to Scott. Scott, a similar line of questioning there, but I think it was one significant barrier could be the cost of the implementation of it all. Is there any question of view on what size of company you need to be at to be able to earn a good return on investment in AI implementations? So I think the key thing this person may be striving is, do you have to be a certain size to start implementing AI?
Yeah, so one thing I tried to touch on in my example was we already had the planning systems, so there was no hard investment there. It was more retrofitting. Philips already had a data lake where we were already looking at the data lake for advanced analytics, just our core reporting. And within those data lake, there was already the technology to implement the built-in AIMLs. So we then put our data scientists to work there. So there's probably always incremental cost, but we actually didn't have to make a large investment on any of the technologies. We reused what we had. I think if you're a smaller company and you don't have any of the tools, then I think you do have to pick an investment, and then you need to look across your data strategy, your planning systems, your data strategy, and then answer that. There aren't very many cheap free solutions for AIML. You do have to make an investment, and I would encourage you to work with your IT teams to find the right fit based on your situation. But we reused as much as we could so that we didn't have to throw away those investments or reuse stuff that was already in place for other purposes.
Yeah, fantastic answer there. And I'd like to just bring in an example here, Scott, in that one of the now leading pharmaceuticals company, very small in the beginning, what they did was to use a university data scientist student to do a datathon and look at predictive planning. Stuff that they used to take months to do was done in a few hours by these students, and it was all a little project. And after that, they went on to embark on doing something with a startup again, and hence, you know, kind of really reducing the cost of it all. You know,
Yep.
start small, as we've all said, in the whole scheme of things, and
Yeah.
then build on it. Yeah. So fantastic. Thank you very much. Last question, actually, because we're quickly running out of time. So, and this one goes to Rolf, of course. Rolf, this is an interesting question coming to a technology person. Right now, we are facing a huge technology leap, as we know. As part of our social and leadership responsibility, how do we ensure we embark on this leap together as a team and not leave anybody behind? You coming from a software side of things, how do we make sure everybody is taken on that journey?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I think so. I think it has very much to do with that training and giving everyone the capabilities and enabling people to work with. What we see is that you have different people in adapting this, because it's a fresh area, and the ones that are eager to learn and that are interested in moving forward, you see that they are adapting it, but not to leave others behind. I think it's about that training. So it's about the soft skills. And what I said in the beginning or during one of the discussions, I think lowering that entry barrier, making it not that magic thing that is someone driving, but making it accessible and trying things out by yourself. And that, I think, makes it easier to be distributed within an organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, having the top level sponsorship is massive in the scheme of things, and communication. And you know, we could go on about this all day. So that's all we've got time for in terms of Q&A, unfortunately. But please keep sending your questions. They will all be answered via email by our panelists themselves. So thank you very much for that. Panelists, just stay on the camera. I've just got some last closing slides, and this could be for your diary as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got the next couple of webinars. The first one is the power of FP&A essential roles for team success, 10th of April. The other one is transforming your FP&A ecosystem with FP&A trends maturity model, 17th of April. So dates for your diary. We hope to see you there. You have been helping us throughout with this FP&A survey, so please give us your support again for the next one, and you will get a copy in your inbox once it's done and dusted. And finally, it's a great time for me to say thank you, first of all, to our technology partner today, Jedox, for making this possible, for our 4 esteemed panelists for all the hard work they've put into producing such great slide, insight, and answering those questions. Panelists, thank you very much. And finally, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Hope it's been very good to yourself. And just a quick reminder, this is how you keep in touch with us. Just before I go, when I close this, you will get the feedback form. So please take 30 seconds, give us some feedback. That is all from us for today. I would like to thank you very much for attending. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and see you in the next meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.